improving building codes for all of the natural perils that could happen through the life of a building, not just today's weather, but the weather over the coming decades. Whether it's about land use planning, whether it's about deciding which flood defences to build or not build.
In what ways will the changing climate escalate risk of natural hazards in Australia?
Several perils in particular are getting worse. We've assembled all of the latest science to back this up and evidence it. And so, for example, we can see that hailstorms are on average across Australia. It doesn't change much, but really importantly, large hail to giant hail is going to get more frequent, particularly around that corridor from Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, and also over in Perth and down in Tasmania, which is, of course, where a lot of our largest population centres are. So the regional differences really matter. Another thing that the report forecasts is that cyclones, which are becoming stronger, they're tending to move more slowly and actually then dump more rain. And also they're tending to move further towards the poles. So areas further south than we've seen in the past, for example, Southern Queensland, northern New South Wales. Again, the more southern parts of Western Australia could become exposed to them. So it's important that everybody's ready for that.
What are the implications for the price of insurance? Do customers simply have to accept their premiums are only ever going to increase?
Well, of course, the price of insurance is driven by a whole range of factors, including the costs of repair, which have been increasing, regardless of natural perils. But the component that relates to natural perils, yes, that is gradually increasing, particularly in the areas that are more exposed or becoming more exposed to these perils. And that is why it's really important that we in the industry and the government and communities engage to look ahead and try and help Australia get prepared for these things and find ways to reduce the risks as well.
Your report points out global greenhouse gas emissions are unlikely to reduce by enough over the next 2 decades to come in under the Paris Agreement's 1.5 degree benchmark. Does that mean the cost of insurance in Australia is tied to global action or inaction when it comes to climate?
I would say that what's happening globally in terms of emissions, we know that is driving climate change. I don't think anybody disputes that now. And importantly, what we're able to do is now tie that to what's happening to specific types of extreme weather in Australia that Australian people, Australian businesses are exposed to. But I think what's really important is that in Australia, as well as doing our part to transition to a low carbon economy and reduce and help to reduce the whole problem, what's really important is that we take the steps that we need to in Australia to reduce the risks and help Australia adapt and be resilient in the face of this, whether that's improving building codes for all of the natural perils that could happen through the life of a building, not just today's weather, but the weather over the coming decades. Whether it's about land use planning, whether it's about deciding which flood defences to build or not build.
And so what does IAG make of the National Party's decision to abandon its support for net zero by 2050?
Well, we do support the government's net zero by 2050 position. We have our own climate action plan, which is consistent with that position, and our focus is on, our mission is keeping Australians safe. We focus on communities, what communities are facing, but also what we expect communities will face over the coming years and decades.
But the energy conversation and the slower than expected renewables rollout, does that concern IAG in the context of a changing climate and accompanying risks?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we do support the government's net zero by 2050 target. We think that's the right thing. We think that we believe in the the outcomes of, and the decisions made by internationally in the Paris Accord. And we think that achieving those Paris goals will be good for Australia because Australia is one of the most exposed developed countries when it comes to natural perils and violent weather. So anything that will help us to move to a more decarbonised economy will help with addressing that root cause.
William McDonnell, thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.